Hi everyone, it's Stephanie Rice, triple Olympic gold medalist and now mentor to many young athletes. You are listening to The Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to another episode of the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by the Gold Coast Marathon and Pogo Physio. I trust you've been having a great week, and I trust that you've been enjoying pursuing your own physical best performance. On today's episode, I share a conversation with you that I had with triple gold Olympic medalist Stephanie Rice. I believe that the timing of this, episode 110, off the back of last week's very popular guest, Matt Fitzgerald, best-selling author of How Bad Do You Want It? Mastering the Psychology of Mind Over Muscle, could not be any better. Last week we explored what it takes to hit peak performance psychologically and how some athletes don't fulfill their potential because of barriers with their psychology that just stop them executing when it matters most. Well, today's guest is not one of those athletes. What Stephanie Rice achieved in Beijing in 2008 was just remarkable. Stephanie took gold in 3 events. Her only 3 events in Beijing, the 200 metre IM, the 400 metre IM, and then as part of the Australian 4x200 metre freestyle relay winning team. Not only did Stephanie win 3 gold medals across the 1 week of swimming, but every time she took to the pool in Beijing, she broke a world record. Just remarkable. Moreover, leading into the Beijing Olympic Games at the Australian swimming trials, Stephanie had broken the world record in both the 400 and the 200 metre individual medleys. However, her American nemesis, Katie Hoff, had bettered the mark at the US Olympic trials just before the Olympic Games. We talk in today's episode about how Stephanie handled the pressure of the monkey being on her back despite her coach's instructions to not go out at the Australian swimming titles ahead of the Olympic Games and break the world record. We talk about how Stephanie managed to pull herself together after winning her first gold medal, which was also incidentally Australia's 400th Summer Olympic Games gold medal and the first Olympic gold for the 2008 Australian team, to recover from being unwell to then get ready for the 400 IM. There was a conversation that took place between Stephanie and her coach Michael Boll, and we touch on that today. We discuss why Stephanie knew that she wanted to be an Olympian from the age of 3 years, how Susie O'Neill inspired Stephanie. We talk about what it took leading into Beijing, 4 years of grind and hard work plus all the years before that, and then 4 magical days in Beijing. A young fan called Mia asks Stephanie a question about staying motivated in the difficult days. Why Stephanie was not interested in working with a sports psychologist, getting up at 4:37 a.m. and why that was the perfect time for training for Steph. And then we talk about the tough years following Beijing for Stephanie after she underwent shoulder surgery and leading into the London Olympic Games, preparing for that with just half the swim volume she would after tearing the subscapularis tendon in her shoulder. We touch on how Stephanie managed that, and we explore Stephanie's life beyond the swimming pool and what the last 6-year journey has included. There's so much in this interview. Stephanie Rice is an Australian sporting legend. So let's dive in with Stephanie Rice sharing on the highs, the lows, and the learnings of her remarkable swimming career, and of course, a physical challenge for the week. Stephanie Rice, this is an absolute pleasure and delight, and I know certainly you're a guest whose name has come up multiple times from the listeners of the Physical Performance Show to hear from, so great to have you online.
Oh, what what a pleasure to be able to contribute. I'm so excited.
Steph, let's start with something straight out of the gate, and that's what's one thing that Stephanie Rice is learning at the moment?
Well, I love the world of personal development. It's something that just excites me so much. I was recently reading The Power of Habit, and I love learning all about how we form like rules and limitations in our mind and how you can overcome habits or create new ones. So that's probably something I'm learning more excitedly and in-depthly at the moment.
And is that something, Steph, that through your competitive swimming years was always something that you enjoyed as well, professional development, or personal development, or is it something that post your swimming career you've really latched onto, and why?
I think I've always loved the world of mindset, and I think such a huge part of high performance is mindset, especially when it comes to racing. I think there's a lot of athletes that are great trainers and great physical performers, but I think you notice like a lot of the top high achieving athletes have a mental side to them that the other ones don't. And I think that all can be learned. So I was really grateful to have a coach that kind of was like, part coach, part psychologist, part personal development expert. So I think he really helped me understand things like everything happens for a reason and getting yourself in the right frame of mind before racing. But I do feel like the ignition to really learn it myself and comprehend it on a new level and more in-depthly came after swimming, because I struggled so much with that transition out of sport, like thinking things like, who is Stephanie now? What do I stand for? What do I want to do? Like, all I had thought about was swimming. So it was a really new step for me to wrap my identity in this new person and create pretty much a new person. And so I really loved the whole world of personal development because I was applying it to myself, and now I still do, but I love to teach that as well.
And Steph, the power of habit, your habits to be a 3 times Olympic champ in 3 different events, 1 relay, 2 individual swims, and not only that, but to set world records in the 1 meet in 2008, the Beijing Olympic Games. In each of those swims, clearly you know a thing or two about mindset and getting yourself ready and up for it, which we want to unpack. I actually found that, Steph, obviously I'm a passionate sports fan, and as my work as a physiotherapist, knew of your swimming credentials, but I actually had overlooked the fact that each of those gold medal swims were world records. And I just think in a day and age where we see a lot of expectation placed on, let's say, the swim team, with sometimes going into major meets with the world records on paper or the fastest times for that year on paper, and sometimes the athletes don't deliver. I'd like to really unpack that with you. But on the power of habit, surely your habits were phenomenal to take you to that level of performance to start with. So I'm amazed that here you are, Steph Rice, 4 years post swimming retirement. You're talking about how important habits are.
Yeah, I think it's but I think it's more like changing them to apply to what you want to achieve or become now. I mean, you're definitely right in saying I have a lot of amazing habits and rituals and routines that I applied to my swimming career, which absolutely led me to success. But there's also things that I'm trying to learn now that are so different from those ones that I created as an athlete, like just off the top of my head. Things like I have to work really, really hard in order to achieve success was definitely somewhat of a rule that I had in my mind, because training to be an Olympian was really, really hard work, grinding your body and mind every day, like pushing new limits. That rule doesn't serve me so well in day-to-day fulfillment and happiness. It does with certain aspects of life, but I also don't want to push myself to such an extent that I'm injuring myself or getting sick or falling over just to achieve a goal. And I believe there's new ways or different ways that you could be more effective and more efficient that don't require such grind, if that makes sense. So I think it's more about learning what the goal is, and then what things I need to do in order to achieve that, or what will bring me the most fulfillment and happiness. And when I look back on my swimming career, I achieved such amazing things. But at the same time, like, I probably wasn't like the happiest I've ever been in my life during like the training phases of it. You look back and you see like that one moment in time, like Beijing, where it was 4 days of just complete like life-changing dreams coming true. But, you know, the 4 years that it took to get there weren't like that enjoyable. And so I just don't want to live my life now spending 4 years for one moment of a dream and a goal. It's just I have different ambitions, and that's because I guess they're more focused on having a fantastic relationship or living a healthy life or having a great business and enjoying the work that I do, more so than achieving just one specific result.
And I've heard you say before, Steph, that if you had to pick a career for commercial gain, then being a professional swimmer, you know, you've got a 1 in a million chance of doing really well out of that. So certainly,
it's probably the wrong sport or business to choose. That's for sure.
But obviously, the principles of the work ethic, you know, carry over into your Steph Rice post swimming years. Steph, just the long story short on your origin story, I'm interested in a couple of things. One, why did you first get in a pool? 2, where did your genes come from for swimming? And 3, at what point did you believe, was your belief in yourself galvanised that you could eventually be an Olympic champion? So happy to speak to that.
Well, yeah, I feel like you've asked like so many questions in one go.
I'll repeat them, Steph.
Yeah.
First one, how did you jump into a pool? When did that happen and how?
Well, the great thing about swimming is that you obviously start from a really young age, learn to swim, and I loved club nights. So like on Friday night when I would get to go to the local swimming club at Ascot State School and compete against my fellow teammates and friends, like that was just the most exciting thing for me. And interestingly, I know this sort of taps into your second or third question, but I knew from when I was really, really young, like 3 or 4, that I wanted to be an Olympian. I just always knew that it's so hard to say now without sounding like incredibly arrogant, but that I would do something really amazing and that I was put here on earth to do something different than most other people. Like I've always known I wanted to be a role model or an inspiration. And then I knew that I loved swimming so much. And I remember watching Susie O'Neill compete at the Olympics when I was about 7 or 8, and I just thought, oh my God, like I want to do exactly what she's doing, but do it in my own cool new way. And at that time it was like a dream. It wasn't necessarily something I thought would happen because it was so far away from me, but it drove me so much when I was young, and I loved it. I think that's the thing I encourage most, you know, parents and kids, is that you have to love what you do in anything, because there's always going to be ups and downs, and there's always going to be days that you don't want to do it. And you need to have something to overpower that setback or conflict or challenge that drives you from a deeper, more meaningful place. And that's where you have to have the passion and the love. And without that, I think it just makes it really easy to turn over to those hard situations and just sort of give in or change your mind or divert it to a different project. So I think that's incredibly important. But my family were athletes, not elite athletes, but they were definitely healthy, active people. My dad was in like the pre-Olympic sailing team, so I feel like we've always had good genes in the family. And Dad always did triathlons and cycling and a number of different sports. And I did a lot of sports when I was young. I did hockey for 7 years. I was picked for the like junior Olympic cycling team in velodrome. So I feel like I've done like a lot of different things. But I always, that love for swimming always was there, way more than everything else.
Yeah, wow. And Steph, you mentioned Susie O'Neill, Madam Butterfly. What was it about Susie that you aspired to? You said you wanted to do it in your own way, but what was it about Susie that captivated you as a young girl?
She was obviously like the female athlete at the time that was doing really well. She was just she was just so cool and like happy and achieving so well, and she was pretty, and I remember thinking, I just want to do what she's doing. I just loved that she was achieving goals that I always dreamed of. And because I was so young, I remember thinking, well, if I could go to competitions or training and not have to go to school, that would be like the biggest win of all, because I would get to do swimming at school time. Like, that would be so much fun. And I remember going to the AIS on like school camp when I was in grade 7 and seeing some of the gymnasts like training during the day. And I was like, oh man, they get to do training like during the day and not do schoolwork. This is awesome. So I think it just kind of goes to show in reflection how much love and passion I had for swimming. And I just always loved it. And I said to myself that the day I don't really, really love it and have that deep passion and desire to grow was the day that I would call it quits, because I knew that you needed that.
And Steph, that day came in off the back of the London Olympics, I think around April, which brings us around about to a 4-year, an Olympic cycle, if you like, post retiring from the professional swimming circuit. That whole transition's a big conversation that I'd like to have. But before we jump over to that, we talk about on this show about the highs, the lows, and the learnings of pursuing physical performance. Of all things you achieved, of which, there is just so much in the swim pool, what's the one moment that stands the tallest for you?
Well, it has to be Beijing, because it was like a lot of people have a childhood dream and not a lot of people actually make that a reality. And so to see the reality happen in the moment of being there was really so special. And I don't nowadays I have goals and dreams, but they're not like that childhood lifelong goal. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're new goals. So that was an incredible moment. But I think within the 3 gold medals that I received in Beijing, the most special and meaningful to me was always, it's so hard.
Yeah.
But the first one, I was the first gold medal of like the entire Australian Olympic team. So to be the first gold medalist was really special, and holds such an important place because it was the first gold medal of the Games. But the second one in the 200 medley, I was really sick after the 400 medley, so it was obviously being on such a high. It was so many drawn out energetic days because of drug testing and media and all of this other stuff. And my coach kept saying to me, well, we have to like calm back down because we have 2 more races to go. And I just could not calm down. Like, it was like, I was like, you've got to be joking. Like, this is the most exciting moment. I don't want to try and like not enjoy this moment, because what if it doesn't happen again? Like, this is so special. So I remember really struggling. I had 2 days in between the 400 medley and the 200 medley, and I really struggled to get myself back down to a stable, energetic position. And because I was, so high strung for so long, I actually got really run down and really sick. So I had like a head cold and just blocked nose, like coughing. And I turned up for the semi-finals of the 200 medley and managed to make it through. And I was just so sick. I rocked into the pool the next day. I was doing everything I could to physically get myself back into being healthy. And I came in because the finals were done in the morning in Beijing, and I came in the morning and I just bawled my eyes crying for about 90 minutes. And I'm sure, having spoken to a number of elite athletes before, there's such a specific routine that you follow at competition time. So when I came to the pool, I always get there 2 hours before my race time and do a specific stretching in the water, do a warm up, talk to my coach, get my suit on, and then go and race. Like, there's no extra time that you allow for emotional breakdowns. So when I came to the pool, like, I just lost it. I was so disappointed that I had trained my life for this meet, and physically things were just not going in my favor. And like, yes, I had 1 gold medal and 1 amazing race, but like, I trained for all of those races and I wanted to do the best I possibly could. And I was so disappointed that, why did it happen now? Like, why has this happened? I remember asking my coach like those types of questions. And we spoke for 90 minutes and he pretty much just had to mentor me into this decision that I had to make of, well, are you going to do it or are you going to pull out? And I think if it was any other meet, I would have pulled out, but I did not want to walk away from that meet thinking, what if I had given it a go or anything. I just did not want to have any regrets. So I made the decision to do the race. I was the world record holder at the time. And I just said, well, if I come dead last, that is what was meant to be. At least if I touch the wall and know that I couldn't have done anything more, that was enough. And I think actually going into that race with that mindset, given that I had won the 400 a couple of days before, I was the world record holder for the race. I was in lane 4 or 5, so it was I was the one to beat. The target was on my back. So for me to not feel that pressure really actually helped. So to have won the 200 medley with pretty much everything going against me and broken my own world record proved to me so much more about the mindset of an athlete versus the physical. Because if you were just doing that race on physical only, I shouldn't have won. So I think in my years since Beijing, that was a moment that I always reflected on, because I think a lot of athletes have this mentality and equation that when I feel good, that equals a good performance. But it's not the case. You have so many times that you don't feel good, or you don't feel ready, you feel tired and you can execute a great race, or vice versa, you feel amazing and you have a crap one. So I think it just proved to me that it doesn't have to be perfect, that as long as I execute to the best of my ability and I'm in the right frame of mind, that anything's possible. And so I think that taught me a lot of life lessons, that race and that moment.
And hence why, you're right in as potentially your career highlight in the swimming pool. And Steph, it very much mirrors recent guest of the physical performance show, Gwen Jorgensen, who won the 2016 Olympic triathlon medal. And Gwen said that mentally she realizes, as did you, Steph, but every 4 years you're not gonna, the chances of you waking up on game day at the Olympic Games feeling good are pretty slim, and so therefore she wears a shirt that says feelings don't dictate outcomes. And there's so much to it, isn't there? There's so much more I think we're all capable of. And I like a recent post you put up on your Instagram gallery around, the might have been a little while ago, the psychology's 70-30, maybe 30%. I can't remember which way you had it, Steph, but what way did you have it? What percentage would you say is psychological at the elite performance space?
It's easily 70%, because you can't tell me that someone can be a world record holder and break the world record 3 or 4 weeks before a big international competition. Everything is saying that they're physically ready. So to then not execute 3 or 4 weeks later, nothing physical has changed. So it's purely a mental thing that is not worked on or hasn't been understood enough. And I think that the great thing is a lot of those things you can fine-tune, whether you're trying to be an Olympic athlete or just be a great partner or be a great business person. The mental side of things are really important to work on. And I think all your doubts and fears and insecurities arise in moments of real trial. So when you do have to stand up in front of a room, or when you do have to, race day, when it's time to execute, all those feelings come up to the surface. And so it's a great opportunity to acknowledge them and see what is there that you need to work on, and be able to transform that if you've practiced it enough and you believe in your ability and you've worked on that mindset of, no, I can do this, I'm ready, reaffirming all the things you've done. I think that's where you see great athletes or great successful business owners.
You're listening to Stephanie Rice, triple Olympic gold medalist, sharing on the highs, the lows, and the learnings of her incredible career. Support for today's show comes from the Gold Coast Marathon. Just like the physical performance show, the Gold Coast Marathon encourages runners of all ages and abilities to push their boundaries and strive to complete a personal challenge. The Gold Coast Marathon is held annually on the first weekend in July and is a must-do event for any budding athlete, weekend warrior, or family looking for a challenge to complete together. Run for the good times at the Gold Coast Marathon. Do not miss it. Jump over to goldcoastmarathon.com.au and register today for one of the events, ranging from 5.7 kilometres right through to the full marathon. Support for today's show is also brought to you by Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo Physio to cross their physio finish line. That's where we high-five you and tell you that you finished rehabilitation and celebrate you being back to your physical best. In addition to traditional session-to-session appointments, Pogo Physio offers some industry-first models of care, including our unique 2, 6 and 12-week fixed-fee, unlimited access finish line programs. We also offer our very popular monthly fixed-fee wellness booster packages, which help you save money and recover faster. Jump over to pogophysio.com.au for more information or to schedule your initial 1-hour appointment. For now, let's jump back with Stephanie Rice, triple Olympic gold medalist. And it's a good time, Steph, to throw into a listener question that's come from Jardine Mitchell. And Jardine says, whilst you were in the team, Stephanie, did you ever use sports psychologists to enhance mental preparation, or did you have your own tools which work for you? Either way, what were they? And I guess you just touched on the role of your coach, your career coach, Michael Boll there. But anything else you'd say to Jardine there, Steph?
Yeah, I actually never used a sports psychologist. Only because I think it's very personal. For some people, it works really well. But for me, I wanted someone that lived and breathed the experience. I wanted someone to understand what I was feeling and had experienced that for themselves. So I just couldn't really comprehend a psychologist giving me all the beautiful wisdom and information that they'd studied when they hadn't experienced it, because I just felt like you don't get it. And so I was grateful to, like I said before, have my coach who had been to Olympics before, but not to the level that I think we were going in as. And just to have been my rock and my support. He knows me better than my parents know me. He's just, I think when you're in the trenches with someone and every day you're experiencing upsets or achievements or highs and lows, you get to know someone's character and then you get to learn people's strengths and weaknesses. And so he knew so well that when I was in a mindset of nervousness, I didn't need someone putting more pressure on me. I needed someone to take it away. Yep. So I think we just found this beautiful harmony and balance, and I think I'm truly blessed to have had him as a coach, because I know if I wouldn't have had him, I wouldn't have achieved the results I had. It was definitely a partnership, and I think if you can find someone that challenges you, like, don't get me wrong, like, we were just not happy all the time. Like, there was many frustrating sessions because he would push me, and that's what I think makes it so special. But I think what the great thing about sport is, which hopefully can answer to the people that aren't necessarily trying to be elite athletes, but it's the mindset of reflection. So when you do a performance, a race, or a presentation in your office, whatever it is, always reflecting after the race or the pitch or whatever you're doing, to go like, what worked well and what didn't work well. And being able to do that from a non-emotional place is really important. So I would always look at my races and watch them back, maybe 2 hours after I've done them, and go, okay, that turn was really bad. This start was great. I could have done this better. Because then I was able to go into my next performance, whether it was a week later or that afternoon, with more knowledge and more wisdom as to how I can execute this better than the time before. And I think that mindset has stuck with me since finishing, because I do that with everything. Even if it's just like a media interview, I realize, like, okay, I said the word awesome 4 times in one sentence. Like, I need to find some new words. or that didn't really, I didn't articulate that in the way that I really wanted to. So I try it in different ways and practice and prepare. So I think that's really important.
Brilliant. Before we flick to the lows of the career, Steph, I don't think it's we can overlook the fact that if you look at your lead into the Olympic Games in 2008, you set the world record at the Australian champs, and then I believe the American swimmer Katie Hoff bettered the world record just before the Olympic Games, and then you took to the blocks and bettered the world record again to win gold. I mean, that is precious, Steph. I mean, how do you deal with that in your early 20s?
Yeah, I actually thought it was, my coach and I always say what a blessing it was that she actually took the world record back off me at the national trials before the Olympics, because going into my first Olympics as a dual world record holder would have been totally different experience. I mean, just preparing for your first Olympics is enough pressure in itself. And I think the thing that people don't necessarily realize, because they see the gold medals and they think, oh, it's so amazing, was that at the trials for the Olympics, to just qualify myself, the first day of the meet, the 400 medley, arguably one of the hardest events on the program. And my coach said to me right before the race, okay, we don't want to break any world records. We just want to get on the team, do a good job. We don't want targets on our back. Like, we just want to make the team. And I remember looking at him and thinking, you and I have never spoken about world records ever before. It's never been something in my mind that I've considered was possible. I didn't even really know what the world record time was. Like, I just had no idea about all of that kind of stats and analysis. And so I was really pissed that he had just said, don't break a world record, like it was something that I was just planning on doing. I was like, not at all. So when I went into the race, and I'm doing this race, and the crowd was so loud, I just didn't know if I was going really fast or if everyone else was going really slow because I was so far in front. Why was the crowd so loud? Maybe it's because it's Olympic trials. Like, I just had no idea. I'd never experienced anything like it before. And so touching the wall and turning around and seeing like my name, number one, and this huge world record banner like flashing at me, I was just so shocked. I swore. First thing I said, great, really great media training there, Steph. So it was just such a surprise. I had no idea that I could go that fast. It took 7.5 seconds off my best time to break that world record. So it was a huge jump. And walked out, so happy and so excited. And I saw my coach. I was like, oh my God, I broke a world record. And he was like, I told you not to break a world record. Like, you totally put the target on your back. This is not the plan. And I was just like, who cares? Like, this is the greatest moment in my life. So, but it wasn't until I actually finished the trials and was preparing for the Olympics that I realized, okay, this is a lot to deal with, because it was the pressure of performance, but it was the media pressure and expectation as well that came along with being now a world record holder and being a potential gold medal chance in a couple of weeks' time. That was just all new to me. I'd not experienced that type of, expectation or other people's expectations. I think the really good thing that I was able to do really well was that I wanted more for myself to do well. I always cared more about my happiness or my achievement being fulfilled rather than feeling like I needed to fulfill everyone else's expectation of me. So I don't think I ever really let anyone else's pressure or what the media said bother me in a way that affected my performance. And I'm really grateful for that, because I knew that if I didn't do well, I would be the one that would be the most upset. Like, the media might write some crappy articles for a couple of weeks, but I would hold on to that for years. You know what I mean? So I always did the best for myself.
Yeah, brilliant. Steph, before we move off the mindset of physical performance in terms of swimming, I had a young swimmer in today, and I mentioned to Mia and a mother that we were catching up today to record a podcast interview, and she nearly jumped off the table with excitement and said, "Oh my gosh, Stephanie Rice was like my childhood hero." And young Mia, who's still swimming and heading off to the Nationals tomorrow, actually has a question for you. I'm going to play it on the phone here, Steph.
Hey Steph, it's Mia. I was just wondering how you stay motivated during training when you're just feeling really down and flat on those sessions, and how you kind of got past that and kept yourself going.
Well, it's a great question, and I think a lot of people have an expectation that they should feel really good and really motivated every day. And it's just not the case. I mean, especially if your alarm clock's going off at 4:30 in the morning, you've got school, you've got all these extra things going on. It's just an impossible expectation that you're going to feel motivated and feel really inspired every day. I think the biggest thing that helped me was always seeing an end goal that I wanted to achieve. So I think goal setting is incredibly important. And if you can have a visual reference of that, even better. If you can also have some photos around what the pool's going to look like, the experiences you want to have, some quotes that you love that inspire you, all those things definitely help through struggling harder times. But having a team and having a support network is really, really important. And just also understanding that it's unrealistic to feel every day that it's going to be great. And so don't try and be too hard on yourself if you don't feel motivated. Rather just accept that, okay, this is what happens. This is the case. I know in speaking with Michael Phelps, he said that a lot. There was a lot of sessions he did not want to go to and would get frustrated that he would have to turn up to, especially because he would train on Christmas Day and things like that. But it was knowing you were doing it for a bigger reason or a bigger goal. And that's why I said having a visual reference is so important, because it reminds you why you're putting in the hours to do it, why you're giving up or making the choice to go training over going to a social commitment with friends. And I think if you've got that in mind and you're continually making decisions in line with your goals and what you want to achieve, then you give yourself every possible opportunity to actually achieve it and have success. And I know in myself, when you stand behind the blocks at age nationals or at the Olympic Games, knowing that you've made those decisions in line with this goal that you're about to try and execute, the more you've prepared for that moment mentally and decided that this is what I want and committed to that, the more confidence you have standing behind the blocks. You don't want to have any doubts or feelings of, I wish I wouldn't have gone to that because I should have done more training and can tell my competitors look more fit than I am at the moment. All of those things aren't helping you execute the result you want. So I think having something that you're really inspired by, a goal or a dream or an outcome that you want to achieve, that really, really helps keep those days that aren't inspiring and exciting, just allows you to just get through them.
Brilliant. I think it's liberating for people out there, pursuing their best performance, to know that even triple Olympic gold medalists, don't feel good every day in training. Steph, before we throw to a performance round, let's touch on career lows. So obviously every journey's got the highs and lows. Describe for me, Steph, the darkest day in your sporting swimming career. What was it?
Oh, darkest days. That makes it sound awful. To be honest, I feel like maybe it's the way I perceive my career, but I don't feel like I've ever had any moment, especially within my sporting career, that was awful, because all the challenges that I had allowed me the opportunity to reflect and learn and grow from it, and I was able to turn a lot of those into golden moments of success. So I think the thing for me is that you learn from every opportunity. You continue to grow, and I think that's important. I was doing PBs almost every year in some type of race. It wasn't always in the 200 medley. Some years I wouldn't do a PB in the 200 medley, but I would do a PB in the 200 butterfly or something different. So I was always felt as though I was growing and I was progressing. And that's a really important human need to have, to feel as though you're growing and evolving. I choose not to look at the dark days as though something awful happened that changed me forever. I'm grateful for them because without them, I wouldn't have learnt so many things about myself or about what I want and dream about that I just wouldn't be now without those. So I think outside of swimming, some of the biggest struggle I think I've ever had was from social media when I had like a major screw up. And I think from that moment, it definitely was the hardest thing I've been through emotionally. But to feel as though everyone thought I was someone that I wasn't was really, really tough. But at the same time, I'm so grateful for that experience. Not that you would want to do it again, but I've learned so much about who I want to be and who I want to be to other people. So I think that moment really allowed me to go, you know what, it's so important that I'm someone that is a role model, that I'm someone who's an inspiration and I can help other people achieve their goals and dreams and be a positive influence. And so I think that the way I've been able to craft myself from that moment has allowed me just so much more clarity on who I want to be. And now I just go about my life trying to be that person to the best of my ability. And so therefore, I don't know, if I hadn't have had moments like that, you just would never learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't have the highs without those challenges. Steph, the 3 surgeries post Beijing leading into London, that must have been incredibly difficult. Obviously, physically, there's a toll there, but as you mentioned, swimming's about you grinding your body day in, day out for tens of thousands of kilometres in the pool. Psychologically, though, going into London, knowing your preparation, your final Olympic Games, London 2012, was checkered because of the 3 surgeries. How did you mentally deal with that going in as the defending Olympic champion?
Yeah, well, I think the surgeries were a new challenge and therefore a new opportunity to craft things in a different way. So the way that I had trained and prepared physically for Beijing, which obviously in my mind equaled success, was no longer an option. Like it just wasn't even an option for me to train that way anymore because I couldn't do the amount of kilometers on my shoulder that I was used to doing before. So it was an opportunity to try things differently and do things that I probably hadn't allowed myself to try before. So I was doing less kilometers in the pool, but I was no way doing less physical work. I was doing a lot more dry land-based training. I really put a lot more emphasis on my strength training and fine-tuned little things like my reaction time or, my speed or strength, stuff that I just hadn't really focused on before. I definitely put a lot of focus on my diet and thought, okay, how could I, craft this to be, more energizing or recover better? And I just tried a lot of natural ways to heal as well, which I love. I love natural medicine and I love recovery, both mentally and physically. So it was, I think, what most people also don't understand is that I tore the tendon in my shoulder in December 2011. So it was like right before Christmas time. I did it stretching, like seriously. It wasn't even some dramatic, amazing story. I was just swinging my arms and I felt this kind of like snap and then my arm went a bit tingly, but it was not like anything dramatic. I was just like, oh, I feel like I've done something to my shoulder. Like that was weird. And only did a small session that morning, went to physio, got some scans. And then he was like, oh, yep, so you've torn the tendon in your subscap. And I was like, just didn't know what that meant. And I was like, okay, so no training the savo, like have a bit of a rest on the shoulder. And he was like, no, like need surgery, like it's a 6-month recovery. And I'm like, I don't have 6 months. Like it's 3 months until the Olympic trials and 6 months to the Olympics. So like surgery is not an option. So I ended up just having a really small clean out on my shoulder to try and remove as much of the inflammation as possible. clean up any little phrase. But I trained with a torn tendon in my shoulder the entire London 2012 preparation. And the more I trained on it, the worse it got. So it was just kind of like a downhill spiral. And so leading into Beijing, when I achieved the 3 gold medals, I was doing 60 to 65 kilometers a week in the pool. London 2012, I was only doing around 30 to 35 kilometers, so almost half of the amount of work that I was doing in the pool, which was hard mentally to feel like, oh, I'm prepared when I just know I'm not. And when I'm racing against competitors that are doing like 70 kilometers a week in the pool. So I was really physically underprepared like from a swimming perspective, but I nailed my diet, I nailed my recovery, I nailed my gym. I just had to do things differently and do it in a way that was new. We had to be creative. We had to craft new training. I was often training on Sundays, which was our only day off, because my shoulder didn't do well when I wasn't moving it. So that was really, really frustrating to feel like I'm preparing for something like half-assed, like I just am not ready.
Yeah.
And then to top it all off, we went on staging camp and I got like a food poisoning virus 3 weeks before the games. So that took me out another week of training that I couldn't do. But I chose not to tell anyone. My coach and I were really clear on the fact that I hate athletes that do a bad performance and then come out with all these reasons why they didn't do well that are all external blaming kind of solutions. And I feel as though I just knew I didn't want to be that athlete. I'd watched other people, say that in interviews, and I didn't like it. I really truly believe in taking full responsibility and not using anything as an excuse. And I also didn't want to tell people because I didn't want my competitors knowing that I wasn't ready. So we just chose not to tell anyone, keep it a big sort of secret that only we knew about. And I think, like I said before, having had that race 4 years before when I was really physically underprepared, but mentally I could still execute, that was like purely the thing that I relied on in the London Olympics, because I was not physically prepared and I was really like mentally unstable because it didn't have that backing of confidence that I would usually have. But I also had the experience. So I was like, I've been here before. I've done this before. I know I can do it. And I'm so proud of how I did in London. Like, it was not the gold medal achieving result. I came fourth. But I did so much better than I deserved to, like, off the preparation. And I think more than anything, I'm so proud of how I handled the situation and handled what felt like a continual string of things going wrong. And to still be able to stand up there and just say, hey, this is it. This is all I could have done. And I'm just willing to put everything on the line. If I die in the last 20 meters of the race and don't move, like, that's enough. Like, I couldn't have done anything more. And so I think that's why I believe fully in having no regrets and just doing all you can. That's all you can ask from yourself. So I'm proud of that, but it was obviously disappointing to have not had the preparation that I would have loved to have had.
Yeah, but given the litany of things going against you in the lead up, as you say, you did the best on the day you could, and that's your success, right? And it doesn't always equal gold.
No, it doesn't. And I think more than anything, sport is very much a bubble. You live in this world where you feel like gold medals are like the ultimate life achievement and determine how good you are as a person or something. And when you finish sport, I realized, like, wow, there's actually so much more to life that I care about and value outside of an end result or a gold medal. And I'm so proud of my gold medals and I'm so incredibly proud of the way I've achieved them. But I think when I look back at my swimming career, what I love and I'm so grateful for the most is the character it built in me, and I guess my personality, being resilient and learning how to handle challenges and setbacks and handle them with responsibility. And I think those types of things are things I look in for inspirational people. I look at people that can go through challenges and can go through setbacks and still stand up and go, I'm willing to try this again in a different way, or do something different next time. I think that's to me inspirational. So I try and do that as much as possible.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's not always what you do, it's certainly how you do it. I know recent guest of the performance show, the physical performance show, Steph, Eloise Wellings at a fourth Com Games just recently on the Gold Coast, bitterly disappointed with her, by her own standards, her 10,000 metres on the track. She thought she was a medal contender, if not the best time on paper going into it, the gold medal winner, and she finished 16th and hung around at the end of the race to welcome home the final runner from Lesotho, and that girl then turned to, later in the village with tears coming in her eyes and said, the fact that you waited for me at the end meant that I wasn't alone, and that became the iconic image really of the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. Eloise waiting for the final place getter despite her bitter disappointment.
And I think that's, like, to me, that's so beautiful and says so much more about who you are as a person. And my coach would always drum into me similar things like that. Like he would always say, like, it's great to be a great athlete, but it's more important to be a great person. And I think when I was swimming, I kind of was like, yeah, but like it's better to be a good athlete. And now I look back and, hearing stories like that and seeing the imagery, that's what is so beautiful. And I think that's what people look at, like especially all the viewers at home that were never wanting to be an Olympic athlete and are inspired by athletes and having the games be, in Queensland. That's the stuff that makes you feel good, right? Like seeing that, you're like, wow, that's so amazing. Like what a great girl she is, or how inspiring. And I think that's what I love. I think that's beautiful. So beautiful.
Steph, one of the swimmers mentioned that their coach, a well-credentialed Gold Coast coach, had used the phrase train like Steph Rice, and specifically that meant pick out the boys and take them on in training.
Yeah, I love training with the boys. I always found it like non-competitive because it wasn't like, you were racing against a direct competitor. So I kind of loved the fact that you could train next to the boys. It didn't seem to have that like emotional charge of racing against a girl and, them beating you or whatever. So I really loved racing against the boys. And I also think it's, again, hard to say without sounding really arrogant, but like when you're the best at what you do, it's really hard to be driven and motivated if you're always like winning in training or in competition. So I always found racing against the boys who were naturally stronger and faster and better than me helped me continue progressing and getting into their level. Because I knew if I could get to their level and be like beating them on sets or touching them out at the end of races, like that really gave me such a huge boost of confidence. Like if I can beat the guys, like I'm onto something here.
Yeah, brilliant.
Progressing.
So train like Steph Rice, a new maxim. Steph, let's do a performance round. So this can be your training session for the day if you like. Here we go. So training session you most disliked.
Oh, we used to do a set of 450s max, like best average, followed by 3 100s threshold 4 times through. It was such a killer.
And how much rest between the sets?
A good 3 to 4 minutes. Like we'd do 100 easy or so, but doing 450s as fast as you can, followed by 3 100s threshold, just killed. Especially when you got to the third and fourth set. It was one of my better sets, but it was the one that you saw on the board and you were like, no.
Training session you most loved. What was that one?
I used to love a set of, if anything, because I was a 400 medley swimmer, so if any of the sessions involved doing 25-meter sprints, I was like, yes, this is the best thing in the world. Like 25 meters is easy. So we used to do a set of like a dive, like a broken 100. So we'd do a dive sprint, 25 meters, and then do a 50-meter from the middle of the pool and then a 25 to the end. That was like so much fun. I used to love that.
Favourite pre-race meal? What fueled you to your Olympic titles?
Well, I used to eat the same thing almost every day, especially leading into an Olympics, like 3 months beforehand. And so it would always be something really simple, not a lot of flavour, no spices, just really bland. I would, pardon the pun, but would often have rice. And I would, at the time I wasn't vegan, so I would eat some type of like chicken and just like plain steamed vegetables, like no sauces. That was always a go-to, maybe potato, but just really simple.
Morning time, bedtime, morning time. What was your sleep cycle like through the peak swimming years?
Well, I'm a bit more of a night owl, so I struggled to fall asleep before 10. Generally, I'd be asleep at 10:30 and would get up at 4:47. 4:45 was too early and 4:50 was too late to get to training. So like 4:47 was just like the perfect time to just get up. Like I had it down to a really, really fine detail. Just everything was always packed the night before. So just get up and get the togs on, get the morning smoothie and like be in the car.
And was that your body clock that woke you up specifically that time, or did you need an alarm?
No. Like my body clock would never wake me up at 4:48. Are you joking? Just never. Not at all. Like I just could never get into the routine. And every time that alarm went off, it was the same feeling of like, no, like surely for some reason there's like a miracle that we can't train today.
But having everything packed, it just removes those variables, doesn't it?
I think and a lot of experts talk about it now. I'm really into, obviously, as we said, personal development, Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins. A lot of them say if you get up when that first alarm goes off, like don't hit snooze, don't have any option. It's just if you get up and you decide and you commit and that's your first choice in the start to a day, it actually sets you up really well. So there was never any snoozing. As soon as it went off, I had to get up because I knew if I didn't, I would probably fall back asleep.
Yeah, certainly.
And I did do that once or twice throughout my career.
Only once or twice?
Yeah, and I copped such a hiding for it that I just didn't do it very often. But it's the worst feeling when you wake up at 7:30 and you thought you just, and you've missed it.
And what's your routine like now, post-swimming, morning time, bedtime?
So I usually go to bed like around 11:30. Maybe 12 and get up at 7. So it's so nice. Like I said, more of a night owl. I'm way more productive like around 5 o'clock onwards. I think that's because there's no meetings, there's no phone calls, social media, like it's just all finished and I actually get productive work done, whereas I find myself during the day being more reactive to emails and other things that I've got to do. So I find nighttime is where I actually find I get most of things done.
Yeah.
And efficiently too.
And nice. And it's all about figuring out the rhythms that work for you, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's the athlete that Steph Rice most admires and why?
I always loved Serena Williams. I just think she's a phenomenal athlete. To be able to, I think because, for me, I won 3 gold medals at one meet and I just had this dream of not being a one-hit wonder. I really wanted to be able to prove myself over and over again. I think that's really like the significance of a great athlete in my mind. And so Serena, to be able to back it up year after year, every different international open competition, she's amazing. And knowing my experience of the pressure, your body, the injuries, all the stuff that goes into it, and to still be able to step up and be like, just have this aura about you that I just don't think I want to come up against Serena. She's got that about her that she's ready to give it everything, and she just can turn it on, and I think she's amazing to be able to do that.
Toughest competitor Steph Rice ever raced against? Who's that and why?
Oh, I don't really feel like I had one.
Well, you didn't, did you?
In a really, I don't mean to sound rude. I think if I thought that, I wouldn't have been the one to win, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think there's been many athletes that I've loved racing against over the years, and I think one of them when I was younger, she beat me in everything up until the day I was about 14, and she trained at my school. We trained at the same club. We were always against each other at Brisbane meets, Queensland meets, Australian meets, and it was always 1 and 2. So I was against her all the time. I always came second. It was so frustrating, but I was so driven to beat her. Like, it was such a goal to beat her. And I did when I was 14. And from there, it really took off my career. Like, I won everything from then on in. So I was blessed to have had that competition from such a young age. But the most amazing thing is that girl was Catherine Hendry, and she's such an amazing athlete. And now she's turned herself into the most amazing artist. A lot of people will know her on social media as CJ Hendry, and she's living in New York. She's drawn drawings for Kanye. She's just killing it. And I just think it's amazing that we've had this whole lifetime together as athletes, and she was such a big part of my career, and now it's so amazing to see her do so well.
Well, that same, I'm sure that same work ethic, determination and persistence is now been expressed in another way. Steph,
Exactly.
was there a mantra that you used when you raced or competed? Like some consistent bit of self-talk that you would have going through your head?
There was never like a consistent I guess like I had a lot of mottos. I always, my saying is be the best you can be, because I think like everything I've said in this interview, if you do the best you can, there's really nothing more you can ask for yourself. And I think it's important to compare yourself to yourself, not other people, and always strive for that self-improvement. Another quote and saying that I've always loved from Napoleon Hill is whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. And that's really true to my career as an athlete, and also now, I guess, as a businesswoman. I totally believe that if you can see the vision in your mind and you believe wholeheartedly that you're able to get it, that circumstances always come up for you to be able to learn and grow into becoming that person. But when I was racing, I always did a lot of positive self-talk, and that's because I used to practice it in hard training sessions. And I think I got really good at understanding you have a positive and negative voice in your head, obviously. Everyone has that. And I got good at understanding and becoming really aware the second my negative voice would start taking over. So things like, oh my God, my legs are hurting so much. Like, oh, there's still like 3 more laps after this one. Oh, that girl's starting to catch me. Like, what, all those kind of doubts and fears like that would come up. Of course, I got really good at interjecting it and saying, no, I'm doing a really good job. There's only 2 more laps to go after this, like rephrasing it to be more positive. You're doing such a good job. Keep up the great work. Like, come on, Steph. Like, I do a lot of like, almost like it was someone else talking to me. I would say my name a lot. And interestingly, in all the personal development work I've done since, that's so powerful and quite hard to teach. And it was just something that came really like instinctively to me. So I think that's what's so empowering to other athletes coming up. If you can learn to balance and really work on your self-talk, that really has a huge effect on performance.
And that's so interesting about putting it into the third person, and you just intuitively, figured that out. One word to describe Stephanie Rice's racing style, what would that be?
Relentless.
Nice. How would you describe being in the zone, Steph?
Well, I think it's a very flow experience. I think it's hard to describe it in 1 or 2 words, but that feeling when you almost detach from outcomes, control, and it's a presence, and it's almost an allowing of things to flow and happen as they're meant to happen. And a lot of great athletes talk about that, their most amazing performances almost as if it was an out-of-body experience. I think that is the sense of true flow. And when you can feel flow, you're most effective. A lot of people get flow or in flow states when they run or when they walk. And when your mind is like in a different place, but it feels like the time just goes because you're just so in flow. You're so in the moment. You're so present. That's a beautiful feeling to get into, especially when there is enormous amounts of expectations and pressure happening at the same time.
Yeah, well, when was the last time Stephanie Rice was in flow, was in the zone?
Well, to be honest, I get it a lot when I do interviews because I'm so focused. I'm so in the moment of describing those feelings and taking myself back to them. So I always find great joy in serving and being able to use my wisdom and experience to help other people or contribute in some way. I love that. Playing board games, for sure. I get in flow states, and walking. So the question is, are you in flow right now, Steph Rice? Yeah, absolutely. This is a great interview.
Brilliant. Let's keep the theme going. Steph, the hardest training session you ever did. Can you remember that?
There was so many. Honestly, there was so many. My coach Bowler used to have just so many different ways of making him kill us. There was definitely one or two sessions that stood out. They were Monday afternoon. They were threshold sessions, and threshold is meant to be 30 beats below your highest heart rate. It was never 30 beats below my highest heart rate. It was always like max out, hardest you can go. And we always used to do a set of 10 100s 3 times through. And given I was a medley swimmer, I would have to do a lot of them in all the strokes. So, like doing butterfly for 10 100s was just like never a fun time. So, yeah, I think all the ones that were near vomit experiences were awful. And I just never was the athlete that could vomit. Like all throughout my career, I just could not get to the actual vomit. I got to over the side of the pool, thinking I was going to, dry reaching, but just nothing. And I was like, come on, I want to be able to say that I worked so hard that I vomited, but I just never did.
You're listening to Stephanie Rice, triple Olympic gold medalist, share around the highs, the lows, and the learnings of her remarkable swimming career. If you missed last week's episode featuring author of How Bad Do You Want It? Mastering the Psychology of Mind Over Muscle, Matt Fitzgerald, then be sure to jump back and tune on into the full episode. Here's a little snippet of Matt's sharings.
The concept of bracing yourself refers to situations where you know that you're about to experience something challenging or unpleasant or difficult. There are situations where you know it's going to suck. What research has shown, particularly with research on pain tolerance, is that your mental attitude before that difficult or unpleasant experience can make a crucial difference for better or worse in terms of how you perform in that circumstance.
To tune into the full episode and explore the archives of the Physical Performance Show, jump over to your favourite podcast player, and there you will find all 110 episodes to choose from. Now let's jump back to Stephanie Rice, triple Olympic gold medalist.
Steph, if you could boil all of your many learnings in terms of physical performance down to one solitary piece of advice to help people listening in pursue and perform at their physical best, what would Steph Rice's one bit of advice be?
That's a really good question. It's very thoughtful. I think it's about being relentless, and it's about being willing to give everything of yourself for a result, especially as an athlete. There can be no stones left unturned. There can be no little inch that will take over your confidence or bring in doubts, because if you just make one decision that is not in line with your goal, that's the thing that stays there when it comes time to put it all on the line that you question, and you cannot have questions or doubts about yourself in moments like that. So I think the more you can do in preparation to prepare yourself for, just everything that's going to come up, the better you will withstand. And I think it's about, I say relentless, because you have to be super courageous to be an athlete, whatever level you are, because especially in something like swimming, one moment in 4 years to execute in a space of 1 to 2 minutes. And you can't screw up any part of that up. There's no restarting races. You can't try again. So to be able to stand there and, like I said, get into a flow state, that's really tough if you've not really done everything you know was possible to do, because you almost have to let go and just trust in the fact that you've done enough work and then be able to execute. And I think a lot of people are in their heads when they race because there's doubts or there's worries or there's maybe I could have done this. So I guess that would be, being courageous and being relentless.
Brilliant. Steph, the transition out of professional sport, it's something that, it's well documented that, certainly in Australia, we can see falls from grace. It's such a hard transition. What do you think could be done differently? And we're not just talking about swimming here, Steph, but to help professional athletes transition to the next stage of life and realise that, their identity isn't in their performance only. What could be practically done different?
Yeah, it's a topic I'm incredibly passionate about, given that I think I struggled a lot in that transitional period, only because I felt like I had to form my own path and figure it all out on my own. Because I think there's a big difference in being an athlete that retires that's like an Olympian versus like it's all based around identity, of course, like you said. And given that my identity was so surrounded by not just being an Olympian, but it was endorsements, it was financial security with the endorsements, it was the accolades, the achievements, the fame, everything I knew and loved about sport that gave me those opportunities was essentially gone, and there was no way to transition. Like, yeah, you can transition work ethic, but like, let's be real, that's like not really getting me like that many jobs because I'm not skilled in other areas, and the skills you learn as an athlete don't always transfer over to accounting or something like that. Like, you need to learn something all new again, and that I really struggled with. So I think what could be done is I think it's bringing to light that who you are as a person is not dictated by external gratifications. So the accolades, the achievements, the awards, the money, they're all external things that you get from being a great athlete. But those things don't determine who you are as a person. And it's more important to work on who you are as a person, because that's really what brings all those other things about. So I would love for there to be more of a call to personal development post-sport, because I do believe that on one hand it's so important to learn these things to be a better person, but at the same time doesn't always serve you in being a great athlete. So it's kind of, there was a lot of things I learned through sport that I had to let go of because they don't serve me now. And there's a lot of things that I do now that would not have served me being a great athlete. So it's a very different mindset. And I think as an athlete, you have to be willing to give something 100% and put all your eggs in one basket. Whereas I think, in life, to be happy, that's probably not the way to go about it. So I would love for people to be more invested in personal development as soon as they finish sport. I would love for athletic codes or like organizations to invest that money into professional personal development experts. I thankfully invested a lot of my own money and time and energy into going to Tony Robbins events. Like, even if they were in the States, like I was going, I did so many online seminars, I've been to so many events, because I was willing to do whatever it took to learn to be fulfilled and be happy and do something else that really I enjoy. And I think that was the biggest thing. I always felt like, swimming was it. It was the pinnacle of life, and everything else is downhill. And it wasn't until I reflected and started to use that as more of a platform to something else. What can I use from this platform I've already built to create something even more amazing and fulfilling and rewarding? And that's really what drives me now.
Yeah, brilliant. And I in researching, for this, Steph, I, picked up a quote that you'd said around your transition, and that was, it wasn't until about a year after finishing my athletic career that the dust settled and realisation of no longer being current and recognised for being the best at something set in.
Yeah, and that's like still something I think so when I finished sport, obviously I love being the best at something. I love feeling really, really good at something. And that feeling of competing on a world stage in front of a crowd of people and standing behind the blocks, like that feeling of exhilaration and empowerment and nervousness is probably never going to be replicated in my life ever again. There's not in a moment where I'm going to experience that again, I don't think. So I had to be okay with not actually experiencing those like super high highs of racing again. I will get those feelings in different ways from different things, but it's just not the same thing. And now that I've transitioned and I'm like so happy and I feel so like better than I've ever felt before in terms of my health and happiness and fulfillment. I feel like what I'm doing is really meaningful. But I almost totally forget my athletic career because I'm such a different person than when I was training. So it's really interesting how I've almost had to fully let go of that person in order to create this new person. And I talk about it kind of like in third person, but that's like what it feels like. It feels like my swimming self died and I was reborn as a new person who can vaguely remember my swimming career. And I do mean it. I vaguely remember it. Like there's parts of it that like I've totally forgotten.
What's on your bucket list now, Steph, outside of your professional sporting life?
I love traveling. I absolutely love just learning new things and immersing myself in new cultures. I do quite a lot of work in India and I just love the culture and the energy there. So I'd love to do more traveling. And I guess on my bucket list, I don't really have like a huge bucket list. I have huge goals that I would love to achieve on a global scale. I'd love to write a fantastic book that really serves people, but I think my focus now is more on contribution and on sharing these insights that I've gained and I guess wisdom that I've learnt over the years and helping other people become their best selves, because I just see so many people struggling with self-doubt, feeling insecure, not feeling good enough, and it's really holding them back from living their best life or having their best healthy body or whatever it is. And I just know that there's so many things I could do to help them. So a part of that was creating my magical mentoring program, which is like a downloadable workbook on personal development. So it's just like a lot of skills and tools that I learned through, I said, like my 6-year journey transitioning out of sport that really, really helped me work through my own blocks. And I've only had that launched for a couple of months and it's been so like what gives me the most joy is when I wake up in the morning and I see like direct messages on Instagram from people that have progressed or learnt something and had that aha moment, like, oh, I just get it now. And they're like, oh, thank you so much for creating the program. Like, it's so amazing and what you're doing is so great. Like, that makes me so happy and so fulfilled. So the more I can do where I get that result, like, the better.
Fantastic. And if you're listening in and you want to check out the Magic Mentoring Program, Steph, I believe people can jump over to stephanierice.com.
Yeah, so it's just on my website. It's actually .com.au.
.com.au, yeah.
And yeah, it's really easy to work through and I'm so proud of it. I think that's the main thing.
Oh, well done. Steph, every guest of the Physical Performance Show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. It can be entry level or it can be difficult. What's Steph Rice's physical challenge for the week to listeners going to be?
Does it have to be an exercise?
You can choose. It can be a challenge. We'll call it the Steph Rice Challenge.
Okay, well, can I make it a food challenge or does it have to be a physical, exercising thing?
I'll let you choose this one, Steph.
Okay, so as most people know, I'm vegan and I think it's really important for people to have a meat-free day or a vegan day at least once a week. So I'd love for people to do that are listening, to try one day being vegan, because I think that's really important. Outside of that, a physical challenge, I like to exercise intuitively, which probably doesn't serve for a challenge-based thing, but I like to exercise when I feel really called to it and feel like it's going to really serve me. But I would love for everyone to exercise 5 days a week and to do something for 5 minutes in the morning, even if you don't exercise every day, but 5 minutes of HIIT style training where you just go straight for 5 minutes, burpees, squat jumps, mountain climbers, those types of things, just go for 5 minutes straight. It's the best adrenaline rush and your brain is instantly focused. I think that would be a really great challenge combined with one vegan day.
Brilliant. So if you take it on, do let Steph know, and we can find you, Steph, on social at It's Steph Rice, right, on Instagram.
Yes, correct. All of them are on It's Steph Rice, so Facebook as well.
Easy. You're not difficult to find. Steph, final fun question here. We did the one bit of advice for physical performance. Now, if you had a billboard anywhere in the world for maximum visibility and you could have one message on the billboard for people, what would it be?
That's a really good question. I feel like I just read this in Tim Ferriss's book and he had an awesome answer, but I can't use that.
You're right. It did come from Tribe of Mentors, Steph.
I'd like for it to be a question. What came into my head right away was, are you enough? And with a question mark. And I think that would be very thought-provoking. I think a lot of people feel in some way not good enough or compare themselves to other people, or feel like they're not training enough, not eating well enough, not doing enough. So I think it would be a really great way for people to start questioning if they feel that they're enough.
Absolutely brilliant. Steph, I must ask and throw this on at the end. You mentioned Susie O'Neill as the first swimmer that you really aspired to be like. Mm-hmm. When you had your Olympic success, what words did Susie share with you when you returned or thereafter?
So I actually only really fully met Susie in 2013, so after my swimming career finished. But what was so special was before London 2012, my close friends and family and manager made a video for me to watch when I was in London. And it was the sweetest thing. And I often watch it and it still brings me to tears. I'm so emotional about it because so many people contributed to it and just shared their love and support and how proud they are. And Susie was on the video. And it was such a surreal moment because, like I said, I looked up to Susie so much and what she did as an athlete is just phenomenal. So for her to then, 12 years later be wishing me best of luck as I go into my Olympics as the reigning Olympic champion was just one of those moments that you're like, wow, how did this happen? It was so special and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful that she was able to be a part of that experience with me, even if just over the video. And it's not lost on me, that feeling when I see Susie now. I still look at her as if I was that 6 or 7 year old girl. I don't look at her any differently. She's just still so amazing. And it's really special.
And that's brilliant. That's the same eyes that so many people, look to you with now, Steph. It's fantastic. Steph, you get to tag a fellow athlete or peak performer. Who do you think would be fun to hear from on the physical performance show?
Well, I almost feel like it should be Susie, just because of that, and I'd be more than happy to connect you guys.
Awesome.
I don't know, do you do anything with coaches or do you just do athletes?
No, absolutely. So we feature coaches as well.
Okay, well, I would love to get my coach on, Michael Boll. I think his wisdom is surreal and he's just been such an amazing coach. And I think a lot of people would get value out of that, especially as managers or business owners having to manage a number of people. I think a lot's to be said for a good coach because some coaches get lucky with a superstar athlete and some coaches can really breed superstars. So Bowley definitely has bred an amazing squad of number of Olympians and world record holders and world champions. So I think he would offer really great advice for everyone listening.
Fantastic. Well, let's see if we can make that happen. That would be great. Stephanie Rice, you're an absolute delight and you're certainly a young lady with such a bright future, and thank you for your contribution to the Physical Performance Show and the inspiration for the listeners.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be able to talk about it, and I really hope people got at least something from the interview, but it was such a great joy to be able to contribute, so thank you.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show. I trust you enjoyed today's episode featuring Stephanie Rice. If you did, then please let myself and Stephanie know. We're easy to find over on social media. Tag us in to a post, either on your Insta story or anywhere on social where we can see it. That means a lot to myself, and it also certainly means a lot to Stephanie, who so generously gave of her time for today's conversation. If today was your first time tuning in to the Physical Performance Show, then a mighty welcome. If it was your 110th time, then thank you for your ongoing support. If you did enjoy today's episode, or you know someone who would enjoy or benefit from the sharings of Stephanie, then please share it with them. Sharing means a lot to both myself and Stephanie, and it helps the Physical Performance Show get into the earbuds of more people who, just like yourself, are looking to perform at their physical best. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you'd like to get the episodes into your device each and every week as they go live on Thursday evenings at 9 p.m. If you've been enjoying the Physical Performance Show, then please consider jumping over to iTunes and leaving a rating or a review. You can do this from your smartphone, your iPad, or your tablet, or any device that you're on with iTunes. I really do get so much out of the reviews. I read each and every one of them that comes through. And today I'd like to highlight and say thanks to CJ Fell, who commented, "Great guests and awesome questions. Great work. You get some awesome guests and love hearing the insights each one brings." 5 stars. CJ Fell, thanks for taking the time to leave your review. Shout out to this week's Podsy winner, and that is Christy Mackay, who jumped on and shared a tag on social for an episode that she was devouring from last week's guest, Matt Fitzgerald, author of How Bad Do You Want It? Mastering the Mind of Psychology over Muscle. Christy, thank you for tagging up. And if you'd like to do a Podsy, that's simply a screenshot of the episode that you're listening to. Then take a shot, tag myself in at Brad_beer, and you can go into the draw each week to win a signed copy of my Amazon running and jogging bestseller, You Can Run Pain Free. We are looking for feedback on how we can improve the Physical Performance Show. So we have a podcast quiz running through until episode 115. It's simple. Jump over to pogophysio.com.au/podcast and leave your honest feedback there. What can we do better? Are there guests you'd like to hear more of or more from? Is there a different theme or a different topic that you'd like to see explored? We take it seriously, and that's how we continue to make the Physical Performance Show better. So any feedback's welcome. When you go over there, take the quiz. You are in the draw to win a $100 movie voucher to the cinemas of your choice, drawn after episode 115. So thanks in advance for any feedback via the podcast quiz. pogophysio.com.au/podcast. Lastly, a big thank you to the team who make the Physical Performance Show possible. Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, Matthew Olding on all things podcast graphic design, and Daryl Misson, our amazing audio engineer, who each and every week does an incredible job turning around our episodes. Thank you, guys. A big thank you as well to today's sponsor, the Gold Coast Marathon. While podcasts are free to download and enjoy, they are not free to produce. The Gold Coast Marathon's support makes this possible and means the world. So thank you, guys. And if you are considering a great physical challenge, then don't miss the Gold Coast Marathon weekend, held on the first weekend on the beautiful Gold Coast in July. The weather's spectacular and the course is sensational. So jump over goldcoastmarathon.com.au and register now. Coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we keep a swimming theme going. We also keep an athlete executing under pressure theme going. I caught up recently with Andrew Lauderston, or Lordo as he's affectionately known. Just like Stephanie, Lordo left the Beijing Olympic Games with 3 Olympic medals. Andrew walked away from the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games with a silver medal as part of the Australian team in the 4x100 metre medley, swimming the butterfly leg, a bronze medal in the 100 metre butterfly, which he achieved in following in Michael Phelps, who took the gold medal, Not only that, but Andrew edged out the world record holder by 0.01 of a second to get that bronze medal. And then he also won a bronze medal in the 4x100 metre freestyle relay in Beijing. Andrew shares some fascinating insights about his career development, growing up as a junior, a budding junior, the disappointments, and then the success of Beijing. One of the best stories I can recall is that of Michael Phelps swimming up behind him in the 100-metre butterfly final and feeling the water drops on his back. And Andrew explains that feeling of Michael Phelps crawling on your back. So this was a fantastic chat. You're going to really enjoy it off the back of Stephanie Rice. So be sure to tune in to next week's episode featuring Andrew Lauderston, 2008 Beijing Olympic medalist. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.